Okay, welcome to the channel. Tonight's Sunday night. Sticking it to the end Sunday night, so because I don't have to go to work tomorrow. I don't have to do meetings and solve problems. So true to form, I'm going to start this out with showing you my Bolden, where I'm at in Bolden, and how much I've got. I'm going to highlight over this right now to show you that I have 1.96 million. I know the title says 2 million, but I will certainly have 2,040,000 isn't much, and I wasn't about to do a video called my road to 1.96 million. That seems silly. So, but I want to get this done. So here we are. Take a good look. That's where we're at. Let's go into, okay, so I'm going to use this to kind of walk you through a history of how we got to 2 million. Now, I wish I had the numbers exactly, but I don't because it gets tough going back to history. So there's going to be some things that aren't quite right here in certain areas, but you'll get the gist of it. And I'm just trying to show you our journey, how we got there. Not glamorous, not exciting, and very doable for a lot of people. And I realize there's people out there that have it much worse off than me, and this could be tough, but you just do your best. The point is get a plan and do your best. So let's go. All right, so at the top here, let's start out with the most important. These are my age ranges right in here to kind of explain to you where in life I was at, what age, and then each one of these has a matching like blowout in the color of that year just to help me remind me of some things that went on. And then up here in green, like cash, is some things that happened during these time segments that were critical to us getting to where we are today. Okay, so let's start real quick. I'm going to try and make it quick. So 14 to 18, worked like a dog, got the clothes at Goodwill, got Christmas presents at Goodwill, lived in a double wide trailer with bricks underneath for a good chunk of that. I paid for everything once I had 16, bought my own car, paid for my own insurance, bought my own clothes, got my own haircut, everything like that. Worked for people at like 14, just doing odds and ends of stuff. At 15, went to work in a restaurant for a year. Oh yeah, grew up in a little town in Colorado, just a really small town, Woodland Park, Colorado. So went to work at a restaurant from 15 to 16. At 16, I went to work at a grocery store. And then from the grocery store, from 16, I would end up going through college and everything on my working at the grocery store. So just, grocery store was good. They treated us really good for the most part for being unskilled labor. Lived really tight. Like I said, with car would break down, I'd have to pay for it. That was in my life where I was buying retread tires because I didn't have the money to put normal tires on, new tires. Paid for all my own college, paid for all my own books, commuted for 4 years. It was about a 45-minute trip one way. I tried to get it down to 3 days. Just always worrying about money. Always worrying about, is the car going to break down? Always not having enough money in my pocket to put more than $5 of gas in the car. Went to the generic hamburger stand to eat. The hamburgers were like 25 cents. It was all black and white. Hamburgers were 25 cents. So did that. And worked during college for those 4 years. In the summers, I would work 40 to 50 hours. And then during the school year, I would work 2 nights a week from 4 to 10, and then 2 days, and then both Saturday and Sunday for 8 hours. So that was putting me at 30 hours a week, and I used that to pay for college and all the stuff that went along with college. Okay, so graduated at 22, went to work at my first company, EDS, as a software developer. First thing here is I got a pension. So I moved all over the place with that first job at EDS. I moved to Denver, I moved to Texas, I moved to Pennsylvania. Ultimately, I moved to New Jersey. So when I was 25, like 20, oh man, I hope I don't forget Spain. I think I met my wife at like 24. Yeah, somebody at 24. And we went pretty quick. And then we got married at 25. Didn't have kids till 30, but got married at 25. So at this point, she was working. She was working as a teacher. She tried a job, didn't like it, and then went an alternate route to get her master's to become a teacher. So she worked from 1992 to 1997. She worked and had a pension. So from 22 to 30, I worked for Electronic Data Systems. I had a pension. I later cashed out that pension, but we'll get into that in a few minutes. Hopefully, we'll see how long it takes me to get there. Okay, so at 25, I got married. I know it's in the 26 to 30, but it was actually 25, 26, right, that year. At 30, we had our first son. When we had our first son, my wife quit her job. We bought this little dinky house in Pompton Lakes, New Jersey, that was basically no dishwasher, wood floors, eating kitchen, little dinky office downstairs, living room, and then upstairs was two bedrooms and a bathroom. No bathroom downstairs. That was our first house. We bought it thinking if we have to live here for the rest of our lives and she stays at home, that's how we'll do it. So we paid $134,000, I think, for the house. So we were mad budgeting during this time. I mean, basically, when I met my wife on, we were mad budgeting because I knew she wanted to stay at home. So I knew it was going to take some thinking and some planning. So we actually used the envelope system where we'd get cash every paycheck. I would do a withdrawal of whatever we needed, and we put all that cash in the envelope. And when you ran out of the cash in the envelope, you stopped spending that category, or you robbed from another category, which we did a few times. Okay, so from 22 to 30, we have our first kid. I bought my first house at 20, probably like 28, something like that. And we stayed there for 3 years. And then at 31, at this point, Beth has quit because we were having our second kid. We bought our second house at like 30. What does it say? Bought next house. Yeah. So we bought that house like 3-4 years later. So I'm probably like 34, something like that. When uh, when when we bought our second house, and at that time I took on another job. I went to Broadview. So I went from my pension. I was 30. I worked from 22 to 30, and so 22 to 30 was we had a kid, bought our first house. At 31, I moved to another job. We had a second kid, and we sold our first house. I sold the first house myself, and we bought a second house. I mean, we bought the house we're in now. We bought that. So at this age, between 31 and 35, I have two more kids. I started a consulting job for a year, hated it, but it introduced me to 401ks. So I started my 401k at like 32, something like that. I wasn't maxing it out, but I started it $400 a month, which I thought a lot was then because I had my wife at home and I had four kids at home. Um, we were again doing mad budgeting, and then like 34, 35 ish. Oh, my company got bought out. After a year of consulting, I went to work for Broadview, which introduced me to the 401ks. I was only there for a year because it was miserable. And then I went to work for another company called Broadview. Um, so that was probably around 33, maybe. I went to work for Broadview, and that's where I got introduced to 401k. Well, Broadview, because I was there 1 year. Um, and what happened is they didn't have a pension plan. So what I was doing was I was like, okay, well then I'm gonna have to put in a 401k. So we were doing a 401k there, but I still wasn't maxing it out. I was still taking the same amount from my consulting job. And then at 37, I started maxing out my 401k as much as I could. And a part of that was at 37, Broadview got bought out by Jefferies. So really, I only worked for four companies. I worked for EDS, then I was a consultant for a year. Then I went to work for Broadview. I was there for 3 years, and then Jefferies bought out Broadview. Broadview is a financial firm, and Jefferies also is a financial firm. So when we got bought out, I had a 401k, and we transferred it from Broadview into Jefferies, but they matched 50%. So that's the big one. So at 37, I started maxing out my 401k because they were matching 50%. Okay. At this whole time, we're driving old minivans. We drove two, a Ford Windstar and a Dodge Caravan, like really old stuff, not eating out a lot, still doing the envelope system and so forth and so on, because my wife is home. And basically that time when Beth was home was tough. So she went back to work in 2012, but she didn't go back to work. It says full time. She went back to work full time, but she couldn't find a job. So what that meant was she was working as like a long-term substitute. She would work short-term substitute jobs, like going for a day and make a few bucks. So she really wasn't tenured at that. She wasn't tenured at that point. So she just wasn't making enough money. It was extra money, but it wasn't enough because until you're tenured, you're not making decent money. So what happened was, and I made my first 100,000 when I became a consultant, and then I was making like 120 at Broadview, and then by the time I was done with Jeffries, I was pulling in like 220 a year, um, including the bonus. So what happened was at 45, Beth went back to work, which was awesome because basically we had been used to living without her money. So but because she wasn't tenured, she really didn't have a 401k or anything like that. So we were just spending it. When she turned 48 is when she got her first full-time tenure track job in our town. And so we right away just maxed out the 401k to 16k a year. No matching because it's a 503b, it's not a 401k. So, but that was at 2015 roughly is when she started maxing out her 401k. So that put me at like 48 years old. So like I said, Beth trying to get a full-time job. She found one. And then I got kids that start going into college around the 50 time frame. So, and there's four of them. So all three of them went to colleges and graduated, which is another great thing, right? Like you get used to living a certain lifestyle. There's a book called, I have it up here, The Essential Retirement Guide, which talks about a lot of times it's easier for people who are married with kids to retire because your lifestyle is usually lower, right? Like for our case, I was paying car insurances, I was paying college education, I was paying all this good stuff. And so when all that went away, that was all found money. So it did two things to me. One is it reduced my living expenses, which set me up for retirement. Two is for a few years, in 3-4 years, it gave me enough money. I took all that extra money and just put it away into savings. So it because your lifestyle is lower, it makes it easier to prep for retirement. Um, so my kids went to college. All four went to state school during this time. I'm still maxing out. So I've been maxing out at this point for a while. In the end, I will have maxed out for 20 years my 401k because I really started at 37. I had some money going in, but it's mainly from 37 on. Cashed out my pension at 52. So at 52, that's this slot right here. At 52, I was worth like 500 a month, but because interest rates were so low, they offered it like 4 times. But as interest rates went lower, at this point it was like zero almost. The payout went higher, and there's a whole bunch of reasons that I cashed it out, which I have another video for. But I cashed it out, and I got like $60,000 for it. So that went right into my 401k. I was able to transfer it right to the 401k, which primary 401k, you can see my portfolio, but early years, it was large cap, mid cap, small cap, large cap, mid cap, small cap, international. And then as I progressed, and then as soon as the S&P 500, once I realized that it was mainly S&P 500 and NASDAQ, until I got older. And then the disposition of the portfolio changed to be a little more conservative. Not till later, though, till I was like 55 or something like that. So at 53, because remember, at this point, like Beth is working, she's up to steam full time. We're using her money. We're putting her money into savings. I paid off the house at 53. I can remember, I even made a little saying debt free at 53. But I remember distinctly sitting on my deck in the back of the house, just looking up and saying, "Oh my gosh, I own the house now." It was so great. And I knew that needed to happen because at 52, I kind of generally started at 51, 52. I kind of generally started thinking about things I needed to do for retirement. And because SALT was so low in taxes, state and local taxes, it didn't pay to deduct the interest anymore because I was always taking the standard deduction. Okay. So we're still cranking away. We're putting everything away, still budgeting pretty, but not as bad. Like when Beth went back to work, we didn't have to budget quite as bad. So then I'm going to say this magically because that's kind of how it works, right? To a certain extent. And at 54, I discovered I had my first million. I remember being on the shores of Lake George in New York when my kids were young, like early teens. My oldest was an early teen, so he's 28 now. So let's just say he was 13. That's 28 minus 13 is 15. So 15 years ago, I remember hitting 100,000. Like I remember that day vividly, sitting on Lake George shores going, "Look, my 401k made 100,000." And I was so thrilled. So it just kind of kept working. We kept doing our things and it kept working. Then at 54, we hit our first million. So what happened then is also I had gotten a raise at 53 for $1,000 a month, and then I found out that I could do backdoor Ross for $1,000 a month, and they would take care of everything. The 401k plan essentially took it out, put it in, and took care of everything for me. So now I have like 36,000 in a Roth, but we started doing that at 53. I said, started planning college around, or started planning retirement around 52. Had done, as you can see, we did all the right steps. And then at 52, I started really looking into the logistics of it, going to a lot of YouTube channels, really putting together my massive Excel spreadsheet, and then eventually going to software, Bolden and Right Capital, things like that. But you'll see, sold my EDS pension for 60K. At 55, this is another important thing. So at 55, Beth stops putting in her 403b because we want to start pulling out cash. We wanted to start saving cash. We want to do it two things. One, we wanted to take a lot of my paycheck because we were always putting away like a couple $1,000 a month into savings. I mean, not during the real tight years, but when she went back to work, we were able to kind of do that. And so at 55, Beth stops her 403b. We stop everything. There was no matches or anything. And we kind of go into that living on her mode because I told her, I said, we got to really start saving even heavier now. So I was putting away I think towards that 55 range, I was putting away like $4,000 a month, not including my 401ks and my Roth, because we were just taking all of our cash and putting it. We still managed to go to Ireland, Switzerland, Italy, Ireland, Switzerland, Italy, and every year we would go to Wildwood, to Jersey Shore. And my kids now, even as adults, want to go to the shore with us. So we stay a week down there and have fun with like 42 people. So you can see here at 55, Beth stops doing her 403b, basically an attempt to do as much living off of her, kind of a dry run, a little bit of living off of her income, and really starting to realize at 55, I realized, shoot, I'm going to need a lot of cash going into retirement, mainly for healthcare. So we did, so at 56, which is this stops at 57, obviously, because I don't end at 57, but I retired at 57. So at 56, we started doing a real simulation as if we were retired. So we put almost all my checks into savings, which made it a really big, not for everything. Like even in retirement, I pay for property taxes, vacations, gifts. It's all in my budget, but property taxes, vacations, gifts, car insurance, homeowners insurance, that kind of stuff. Kind of not the day-to-day stuff that comes up. I pay for the stuff that's like it comes up, but maybe only once a quarter, and it's big numbers, but I pay for that. So we were doing a real simulation at around 56 to 57. It was like, okay, hon, let's pretend. Now, bear in mind, my wife still works. So she doesn't put she puts $50 a month in her 403b. But it's just a blessing. She's awesome. Like she's literally been off all summer. We just got back from Wildwood last week. So her and I went on a Midwestern trip for 2 weeks. I got a video on that for dreaming and retirement. But anyhow, we went on a Midwestern trip for 2 weeks. And then we've just been down in Wildwood for 8 days. And we'll probably go on a couple weekend trips. And we were in Philly for a couple days with some friends. So she's off in the summer. So that's what enables her to work. And as a matter of fact, she's kind of looked at me sometimes and said, I have her retiring at 62. So I guess if I went out here when she's 62, I'll be 61. Then she's going to retire. But she's been looking at me lately saying, I don't know if I want to stay at home. Because she's a teacher. She likes it. She has good days. She has bad days. But it gives her a lot of fulfillment and she enjoys it. So she's not quite sure if she's ready to stay at home yet. So this is like my overall picture. And then it just builds. Like the great thing is, like, this is what's so great about America, right? When I was a kid, especially in this area, like in these years, you couldn't just say like, oh, I want to invest in whatever. You had to know a stockbroker, or you had to download some crazy program, that would connect via AOL and crap like that. It's so easy to do it now, like with Robinhood, and just even in my accounts, I can move my accounts around on a fly. I can redistribute. I can do whatever. Like it's so easy, but you just take the steps and you let them work. I'm nothing special. Like, God willing, some of the things I've done, God's blessed the plans, but I am nothing special. I'm just browsing down here, make sure I don't go over time. I hate like making stock decisions. So I never did. It was always just S&P 500, NASDAQ, and maybe some safer income funds. Um, I didn't do anything special. I'm not a rocket scientist. Like I'm a pretty decent developer, but I didn't do anything crazy. And we lived a lot of years now. I know houses are more expensive now, and that's a whole nother discussion. But I put myself through school. How many kids are willing to do that today? How many kids are willing to commute to not go into debt for school? There is definitely some sacrifices you have to do, but it can be done. And I kind of want to just do this video just to kind of give you guys a background of where I'm coming from when you're watching my videos, but also to look and see, like, this wasn't some crazy plan. It was a pretty simple plan. But you got to have a plan. I'm a big believer in do all the fundamentals, do the absolute best you can, and still live a decent life. Like we still went on vacations, but not glamorous vacations. Always bought older used cars. All my kids' college got used cars. Nothing fancy. Nobody went, oh, look at that car. Our friends are buying new cars. We were buying older used cars. Um, so you got to kind of live a conservative life, but you can do it. It is doable. And now, after 54, just like 3 years later, I'm sitting on 1.9 million instead of the 1 million when I hit it. So it's like, let that money accumulate. Let's start doing its job. Like I said, I reiterate, I'm really lucky that my wife works. She makes enough now to kind of pay our everyday bills, and then I pay the bills that I mentioned earlier. Even in retirement, I pay all those bills. She pays just the day-to-day bills that go on, and we run a pretty tight ship, but we have fun. So I said three kids went to college. One's still trying to figure out if she wants to go to college. Got a little bit of help from the family for colleges. But I don't want to disclose that. But that was a big help, I will say. I mean, I always put into the 529s, but it was a big help. So just do your best, man. Do your best. Don't be stupid. I know there's people out there that don't make enough to save enough, and my heart goes out to them. It really does. But if you make enough, for Pete's sake, save it. Tomorrow is a lot more fun than a car. Like I said, I have a Dodge Challenger now. I've had it for the last like 10, well, maybe 9 years used. So you can do fun stuff too once the time arrives, when I didn't need a minivan to haul kids around. But you can do it. Do your best. It's so worth it, man. Like, here I am on a Sunday night sticking it to the man. I can stay up late, do this video, still be productive. Just went on vacation for 8 days. I always used to be stressed during that vacation. I never knew when I was going to get a call. I'd always have to check. I'd come back from the beach. After being on a day on the beach, I had to check my phone to make sure I didn't get any calls from work. So it's so worth it. You can do it. Just do your best. It's worth it. Have a good night. Sticking it to the man.